kids, it's time to sit because Battleground Casual is on. Here's Aaron or Matt.
Or both.
Hello, everybody. How's it going? My name is Aaron Knoll. I am, of course, joined by Mr. Matt Beer, and welcome to the return, officially, unofficially, of Battleground Casual. Last week, on kind of an impromptu notice, I went live and did what I titled Episode 0, because it technically wasn't supposed to be the first episode, but we had people and we had a topic and we decided to go live with it. But this is the first official episode. I've, of course, Matt, my co-host, my partner in crime for many, many years in the YouTube space. How are you doing, man?
I am doing good. I'm in the process of uploading a thumbnail. So if you see me on the phone, that's what I'm doing currently. It didn't pop up on the studio app, so I have to go to the website and I have to add the account. Isn't that incredible? This is like the just gripping and thrilling stuff you look for in Battleground Casual, just behind the scenes stuff. But I made a thumbnail because I didn't know if it was going live or not. I just wanted to have one. Where are we at? Live. Come on, silly.
All good.
Yeah,
we're only like starting 30 minutes after the initial start time because we've been discussing stuff connected to the show only for this to not be something that came up in that 30 minutes, which is actually pretty par for the course for us. If you are watching either live or in the comments afterwards, be sure to comment below, interact with the show as we go through. Normally, as we kind of had last week, the intention is to have a panel with the show as we used to do as well. However, I had a kind of format developed for how I wanted to discuss the Oscar nominations this week with a slightly bigger group. And then unfortunately, some of the group fell out. So we decided to just go with ourselves this week. First off, thank you to anybody who was going to participate that isn't here because of that. I appreciate you guys for taking everything cool. But it's just us this week. We're going to try and keep this as breezy and entertaining as humanly possible for you guys as we go ahead and work through the Academy Award nominations. But before we do that, we're going to start with a segment that we're going to do when we have episodes like this, where we have like an extended topic that's going to take up the bulk of the episode. And keeping with the theme of TMG Entertainment, which is just taking great ideas that used to exist, that no longer exist, and doing them ourselves. We are going all the way back to the great AMC Movie Talk to take a segment called Buy or Sell. How is this going to work? Now, normally we would have a bigger panel for this, but it is just going to be Matt or I, since it's obviously just us. That makes sense. I don't know why I said that. My brain is spinning out quickly. I have a couple of big news stories from the week that I'm going to briefly read out, and then I will go to Matt and then myself simply to say whether we buy or sell with a brief supporting point afterwards. Just kind of a fun, breezy introduction discussing some of the latest in the world of movies. With that said, Matt, are you ready?
I am ready.
All right, let's go ahead and jump into this as our first big story from this week, as it was reported that actor Ryan Gosling is apparently in talks to join the previously reported Sean Levy film. Levy, who was working on a boy band film with Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman, apparently originally reached out to Ryan Reynolds to discuss that film. However, eventually negotiations moved over to Star Wars. And if Gosling signs on, it may accelerate production to the point where Levy will do his Star Wars film before going on to do said musical film with Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman. Levy has been developing the film since late 2022 with co-writer Jonathan Tropper, who did his previous sci-fi effort, The Adam Project, with him. And again, right now, based on where Star Wars films are at, tentatively, if this gets going sooner than later, it'll be the second film out the gate following The Mandalorian and Grogu. Matt, buy or sell Ryan Gosling joining Star Wars?
I buy it. Obviously, Gosling, very good actor. Very good with comedy, very good in the dramatic stuff. I'm sure he could do this movie in do a good job with this. But my thing is, I'm a little worried. Are we going to have just a bunch of A-listers in this movie, or are we going to do the traditional, which I hope they do, the traditional Star Wars route, which is, yeah, you get a big name, maybe two, but you get a bunch of unknown actors. Like with the original Star Wars movie, you had Alec Guinness, but then you also had actors like Mark Hamill, Carrie Fisher, Harrison Ford, not as well known at that time. And then even with the sequels, you had Oscar Isaac, you had Adam Driver, and then you had Daisy Ridley, John Boyega. So if they're going to do that route where it's a Gosling, maybe Hugh Jackman, if they want to go to, and then you go with like me and you, as like smaller actors.
Good luck.
I'd be okay with that. But if it's going to be, Ryan Gosling, Ryan Reynolds, Hugh Jackman, Harrison Ford somehow appears in this movie, even though this has nothing to do with the Skywalker trilogy or franchise. Then I'm not going to be as big on it. You know what I mean? Like I might sell it at that point, but for now, I buy it. What about you?
I buy it. I don't have the same concern you do at the moment because it makes sense that the first name we hear would be kind of the megastar. You want to secure somebody who is a name first before you go on and do the others. If I recall back in the day, the original three actors were the first names we heard from the 2015 film. And then I think it was Adam Driver was actually the next name out the gate. So it does make sense that the established people would be the ones that you hear first. I think Gosling could play a great fit. I think he fits a Harrison Ford type very well. I think recently Skeleton Crew did very well with having a mostly unknown cast and then having Nick Frost and Jude Law sort of the established anchors leading that group. I'm not saying we should just straight up replicate Skeleton Crew, but I think that is a great formula for what we should do going forward, so I buy it. Second news topic, we'll keep on Star Wars, as it was reported by someone familiar to a lot of the people watching this show, Mr. Christian Harloff, that Natalie Portman is apparently in negotiations to return in Star Wars Ahsoka Season 2. He did not have much context as to how that would work, whether it would be flashbacks once again, or it would be something else. Previously, Harloff had also reported that Ewan McGregor was in negotiations to return, so that would indicate that they would be doing more flashbacks following up on the episode that featured Hayden Christensen last year, as well as Ariana Greenblatt portraying a young Ahsoka. Matt, buy or sell Natalie Portman, and I'll throw in Ewan McGregor as well. Why not? Buy or sell them returning to Ahsoka Season 2?
I guess I buy. I'm assuming this is a flashback. Will probably take place during the Clone Wars. So getting to see Natalie Portman and Hayden Christensen and Ewan McGregor together again, assuming this is true, because you don't know, Harloff doesn't break a lot of stories, so you don't really know for sure with him. It wouldn't surprise me knowing it's Dave Filoni, but still, I'm gonna assume it's a Clone Wars. So seeing all those people together again, it's going to be nice. This will probably be a one-time thing. Never going to see this happen again unless they do season 3 of Ahsoka. And then you're going to add Sam Jackson and have Mace Windu in the flashback because, we got to continue to add these people. But for now, I buy. What about you?
I sell it. Ahsoka is a Dave Filoni project, and one of my biggest problems with Star Wars right now is Dave Filoni is way too obsessed with just going so deep into the canon and the lore that I don't think it's doing anything to bring in new people. I don't think the show needs more flashbacks. I think you need to develop Ahsoka's story properly and move it forward. The flashback episode in the first season was a good episode, but I don't think you need more of it. I mean, Star Wars has already had an issue where they take a show with a concept and try and merge way too much of something else into it, hurting the show. So I sell it. There's no reason for her to come back. It made sense with Thor. It doesn't really make sense with this. The third topic we have here, actor Benedict Cumberbatch confirmed personally this week in an interview that Doctor Strange will not appear in Avengers Doomsday. According to Cumberbatch himself, the character was previously set to have a very large role in the previous Avengers Kang Dynasty script. However, with the readjustment of the plot and shifting to whatever the premise of Doomsday is, it does not make sense for Strange to be a major part of the film, and so he was written out. However, He will return for Avengers Secret Wars, and he essentially confirmed that Doctor Strange 3 will be moving forward, although he stopped short of giving any details on it. Matt, buy or sell Benedict Cumberbatch not being a part of Doomsday?
I buy it. It makes sense. We saw at the end of Doctor Strange in the post-credit scene, he goes off with Clea to figure out what's going on with all these incursions. I believe that's the term that it is. So it makes sense unless there's going to be a time jump with Doomsday between that and Doctor Strange, like a big time jump. It makes sense for him not to be in this movie because he's off trying to figure out what the heck's going on. And it's, of course, going to, lead into Secret Wars. And I would assume we're getting Doctor Strange 3 somewhere in between Doomsday and Secret Wars. It wouldn't really make sense to have him before or after Secret Wars, or before Doomsday or after Secret Wars. So I'll buy. It makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, I buy it. First off, I don't think every Avengers film from here to eternity needs to be let's shove as many characters in as possible. Personally, I am already kind of weary that the next two Avengers films are a supposedly 2-part sequence story directed by the Russos. To me, it does feel a little all too familiar, even if it winds up being good. So I like the idea that they're not scared to leave major players out of the screenplay. Obviously, we don't have the context for what the premise is, but just in theory, I would buy it. Again, I think it'll wind up being just like with Infinity War and Endgame. People who were set up to be major players like Ant-Man or Hawkeye missed out on Infinity War with very justified reasons. In Ant-Man's case, a film being the justified reason later.
Yeah.
Absolutely, I think you could do the same thing with him. Next topic, as we're halfway through here, David Leitch, director of the recent The Fall Guy, as well as Bullet Train, and co-director of the original John Wick, is apparently Brad Pitt and George Clooney's top choice to direct Ocean's 14, which does seem to be moving forward, in addition to an Ocean's spinoff that's set to star Margot Robbie and another guy whose name I cannot remember right now. But Margot Robbie's I don't believe it was Gosling, but it doesn't matter. That's not what the story's about.
No.
But anyway, so yeah, Ocean's 14 looks set to move forward with David Leitch in talks to direct the film. Leitch previously worked with Brad Pitt on the aforementioned Bullet Train. Clooney and Pitt are both on as producers and are expected to star in the film as well. It is assumed that majority of the surviving members of the original 3 films will come back, although there's no official word on it. Leitch is the second director in talks to direct the film. Previously, All Quiet on the Western Front and Conclave director Ed Berger was tasked to direct the movie, although it seems he has since fallen off as he has reached the top of the list for franchises like James Bond and Jason Bourne. Matt, buy or sell David Leitch directing Oceans?
They're going to be doing it anyway, so I buy. And sorry, Kansas City just won. Of course. I don't want to see them celebrate. Anyway, that's not the story. Kansas City, Philadelphia. It's the worst outcome for a Super Bowl. But no, I buy it. I like David Leitch. Bullet Train was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed Bullet Train. And, I've enjoyed pretty much everything he's done. He did the Hobbs and Shaw movie, which is the best Fast and Furious movie out of the last, 4, maybe 3. But he's a good director. I like that he's not just doing John Wick type movies or John Wick movies. I like that he's branched out and did different things. And clearly, if he's going to be in this movie, Brad Pitt has enjoyed working with him and probably recommended him. And also, I looked up real quick, not part of the story. It is Ryan Gosling with Margot Robbie.
It is.
I kind of remember that was around Barbie. But yeah, I buy.
Yeah, no, I buy it as well. I've openly liked David Leitch's films. I haven't really loved most of his movies, but I do like them. I think he makes fun summer romps, and I think that's what Oceans needs to be. I remember when I first heard Edward Berger's name going around, I thought, he'll make a good movie, but that doesn't seem like a fit to me.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Leitch fits a lot more. And similarly on the other part of that story, Berger doing Bourne that I like. That's a better
Yes.
fit for me.
Yes.
So I'm cool. I'm cool all around here. The question is, do we need an Ocean's 14? But that's a different discussion. The next story we'll go on to here. Tom Holland was rumored this week to be the lead of Christopher Nolan's upcoming adaptation of The Odyssey. Previously, it was believed that Matt Damon would be the lead and star of the film, as he was the first name announced in the cast, although this rumor states that it is Holland's character that will be the lead. Interestingly, the story doesn't necessarily denote that he will be playing Odysseus, who is usually portrayed as an elder character. This plays into the previous theory that Matt Damon would be the lead, as in the story, Odysseus has a son that would be about the same age that Holland, maybe not Holland is, but that Holland could play. So this would definitely be a twist in the story one way or the other if Holland is the lead. Matt, buy or sell Tom Holland leading Christopher Nolan's Odyssey?
Well, if he is the flat out lead, I sell, but I think he's going to be the co-lead. So based on what I think is going to be the case, I think he'll be the co-lead with Matt Damon. I buy that. If he's the flat out lead and he is playing the lead character, which, it's Odysseus, known as an elderly man, like you said, this is like Uncharted with Tom Holland playing Nathan Drake. And while it was a fun movie, sure, it just should have been a little older. And that's kind of how I am with this. But again, I trust Christopher Nolan. So if he is the lead, I'm sure it's for a good reason. But I believe it's a co-lead. Still, if he's the full lead, buy if he's the co-lead with Matt Damon.
On paper, I'm kind of on the same page with you. Like, on paper, if we're just talking about the story of the Odyssey, I guess I would sell it. But I buy it simply because it is Christopher Nolan. I think if there's any director who has proven that he can take actors that we wouldn't necessarily consider for big leading roles like this, it is Christopher Nolan, and I think he's turned around and put them out. I would argue that Christopher Nolan, I mean, obviously other issues hindered Guy Pearce's career, but Christopher Nolan gave Guy Pearce his best shot at being a lead with Memento. In recent years, his picks like John David Washington and Cillian Murphy, I think, have done a lot for their careers. So if he thinks that Holland is up to task, then I'm going to believe him. But just on paper with the story of the Odyssey, I would sell it. Second to last story we have here, director Robert Eggers had not one but two new projects confirmed this week. The first was a previously reported film by Jeff Snyder that he would be directing a reimagining of Labyrinth, the 1980s Jim Henson David Bowie film. It's not known if the film would be a plot similar to the original film or if it would be his own reimagining, keeping the concept of it. Although we do know now that he is working on it alongside his co-writer Sean, who worked on The Northman with him. He is also developing what I believe would be pronounced Werwolf, spelled Werwulf, a werewolf story set in a similar time period, and I'm assuming similar tone, to his most recent hit, Nosferatu. It is currently not known which film will come first. Labyrinth is with Disney, and Werewolf is with Focus, who he did Nosferatu with. So it seems as though whichever studio gets their ducks in a row first will be the one to have Go Picture, although it is all but confirmed that these will be his next two films. Matt, buy or sell Robert Eggers' upcoming schedule?
I mean, I buy pretty much anything Robert Eggers is directing at this point. He's earned my trust. There's not a film he's done that I've disliked. Labyrinth 2 is a fascinating one. I'm very curious to see his take and how he does it, especially with the loss of David Bowie. I'm very curious. And it's Jennifer Connelly, right? That's
Yes.
in Labyrinth. Okay, I almost said Demi Moore. Thank God. I didn't say that. It's Jennifer Connelly. Although Demi Moore would be great in the sequel as well. But I'm very curious about that. And then I'm just going to call it Werewolf. Look, he's forming his own, like, not Universal, but Universal Monsters universe now. That's what he's doing. He's going to do Creature of the Black Lagoon at some point. I want to see him do Phantom of the Opera. That's what I want to see. But look, These are going to be really, really good movies. So I buy.
Yeah, absolutely. I buy whatever Eggers. If Eggers wants to do something, then I think he'll do it. Specifically, I mean, I've not seen Nosferatu yet, just because I generally don't watch horror films in theaters, but I am anticipating seeing it once it's out of theaters. But specifically, Labyrinth with co-writing it with his writer from The Northman, Sean. Which, yes, if you've ever read that guy's name, Sjon, that is how it's pronounced, Sean. I think The Northman personally is his best film. I think it is just so masterfully crafted, and it's like obviously not officially so, but it is an adaptation of Hamlet, and I think he does such a great job with that grandiose story. I would be so curious to see what he does with Labyrinth. I hope it's not the same story as the 80s one. I hope he develops his own way into the world. Although, interestingly enough, and a lot of people may not know this, but a few years ago with Disney, Scott Derrickson was developing a remake of Labyrinth. And apparently his choice for, if not Jareth, the Jareth fill-in was Alexander Skarsgård. I would like Eggers to see him stay on, because I think Skarsgård has the charisma to do a role like that. I just don't often think he's cast in roles like that. So I would love to see him get a chance to play something like that that's very dialogue driven, because he's got a lot of presence. And then the final story here before we move on to the Oscars. Netflix has bowed down to a king, and her name is Greta Gerwig. As it seems as though Greta Gerwig's vague threats to walk off the Narnia picture have led to them reaching an agreement with IMAX to distribute the film in IMAX theaters. Now, there's a lot of conflicting reports about how this sort of went down. Purportedly, a deal had to be reached with the three major chains in the US, AMC, Regal, and Cinemark, who all host a number of IMAX theaters themselves, to see the film released on IMAX, meaning they may get some sort of cut out of this for hosting the film. It's also not known how long the film will stay in theaters. There are varying reports that state that there is a 2-week, 3-week, or 4-week limited engagement. There's also been reports that state it's a 2-week exclusive engagement with the ability to stay in theaters longer should it want. What we do know is that the film is set to release in early November 2027 to be out of theaters for Christmas of that same year, working with a slightly larger window than they worked with just a few years ago with Glass Onion. Matt, buy or sell Greta Gerwig's Narnia going to theaters?
I bought everything, and I'm going to buy this too. If there was anything that would have made me say sell, it's the fact that it's only in IMAX theaters and not in all theaters nationwide, because I have to drive an hour and 10 minutes to go see this movie now. But I'm going to buy it because I'm hoping that Netflix, they see the response that this is going to IMAX, which has been positive, and I hope they see that this movie makes them millions of dollars, and that makes them go, okay, we'll release our stuff in theaters, or at least the big stuff. I don't need to see their like $10 made movies that are straight to Netflix, but something like Maestro, I would have went to theaters to go see. Heck, the Rebel Moon movies, even though I'm not a fan of those, I would have went to go see those in theaters, because there's just some movies that they make that I think are worthy of seeing in theaters, whether they're big blockbusters or smaller Oscar contender films. So I'm hoping they go, you know what? The next Knives Out movie, well, no, that comes out before, so it wouldn't be that. But their next blockbuster, we'll release in theaters.
It could inspire them.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, Daniel Craig said they were, I believe the quote is fucking stupid for not releasing Knives Out 2 in theaters. Nationwide, they did just a very small, limited thing. So hopefully this shows that, hey, we can make money in theaters. So, yeah, I'll buy.
Yeah, absolutely. My opinion on this still is I don't think I'm going to wholly buy a remake of Narnia until I see it. It's not that I don't trust Greta Gerwig. It's just I don't really know why this needs to be remade. Now, there's a lot of ancillary information around it that makes me more interested. The first thing is apparently she's interested in adapting the books in chronological order. So a lot of people will remember that she signed a 2-picture deal to do the first 2 movies. That would see her, if that's true, that would see her do The Magician's Nephew and then a remake of The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, which that does interest me more because I think seeing this new world through a different picture first would be more interesting than just explicitly seeing what we've seen before. Another piece of information is apparently part of this negotiation is the film will now be shot in IMAX in order to maximize the usage of the screen, which I do think is a great thing. Can never go wrong there. But I think at this point it is just about, seeing who's in the movie and seeing the approach that she's going to take because, and I think a lot of people feel even more aggressively than I do about this, going back to Narnia, which in the world of film is a very solid to mediocre film franchise from the 2000s into the early 2010s, feels like a weird move for someone who could do anything that she wanted. But as long as the movie's great and something good comes out of this in terms of Netflix and theatrical distribution, then I don't think anyone has any room to complain. And she's already gotten a first step on the first part. So yeah, I buy it. And with that, we'll go ahead and move on. I have to say, this is a great comment from Malcolm. I'm glad I didn't see Rebel Moon in cinemas. I would have been pissed if I wasted my money. Yeah, that's fair. I'm pissed I wasted my time. That movie is so bad no matter how you watch it. But you're right.
And I'd rather see something
part
on the
1
big
I could
screen.
have lived with. Part 2 is so badly shot that I don't know if I want to watch it.
Yeah, and I paid to see Craven the Hunter. I almost said Craven and the Hunter. It seems like that at times. I paid to go see that in theaters.
Honestly, that was kind of what the movie was.
Yeah,
Craven and a Hunter.
Yeah, but I like watching things on the big screen with the audio rather than my 55-inch TV. So, I mean, yeah, Rebel Ridge would have been fun to watch in theaters too.
Yeah, possibly. I've not seen Rebel Ridge yet.
It's good.
I've heard it's very good.
It is.
But it was one of those that I was just kind of like, okay.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and move on to discussing the Academy Awards nominations. Now, we have all 23 categories pulled up here. I also have visual aids that I will pull up on screen, although I will not lie, some of them will be easier to read it for you at home than others. That said, though, before we get to that, Matt had a separate thing you wanted to do real quick if you want to rattle that off.
Yes. So this is going to be a topic in the future. When it will be, I don't know. You probably will forget that I said that by the time this is a topic on an episode. But what we're going to do, this little preview, little taste, is I'm going to just rattle off what I would nominate for some of the bigger categories and a couple small categories. And we're going to start off with best score. Now, obviously the Oscars.
I'm going to grab myself a drink real quick. Feel free to keep going.
Okay. Sorry. It's cool. So Aaron doesn't care about my thoughts. But no.
I love you.
He does. Okay. Thank you. But I don't care what the Academy says. They're saying that Dune Part 2 is not eligible. I think that's stupid, especially since Wicked got nominated for an Oscar for Best Score. So my nominees, what I would nominate for Best Score is Hans Zimmer for Dune Part 2, Atticus Ross and Trent Reznor for Challengers, Chris Bowers for The Wild Robot, Volker Bertelmann for Conclave, and then John Powell and Steven Schwartz for Wicked. Now, for visual effects, I would have nominated Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, Dune Part 2, Twisters, Wicked, Alien Romulus. For best cinematography, I would have nominated Stefan Fontaine Conclave. Why that was not nominated, I don't know. Jaron Blasky for Nosferatu, Greg Fraser for Dune Part 2, I'm going to butcher this name, but say Ambu Mukdipram for challengers, Edward Latchman for Murray. I've not seen Better Man. I'm not nominating anything that I haven't seen. I've not seen Better Man, Chris. There we go. I've not seen it. Best original screenplay, I would have nominated Sean Baker for Nora, Jesse Eisenberg for A Real Pain, Caroline Fairget for The Substance, Megan Park for My Old Ass, Justin Koreskis for Challengers.
And at any point you want a correction, just let me know.
Yeah, I butchered that name. I'm going to butcher some more. Koreskis. Okay, that one for Challengers. For adapted screenplay, I went Peter Strahan for Conclave, Denis Villeneuve and John Spates for Dune Part 2, Winnie Holzman and Dana Fox for Wicked, Richard Linklater and Glenn Powell for Hitman, John Wang for Didi. For Best Animated Feature, I went Flow, The Wild Robot, Memoir of a Snail, Inside Out 2, and Transformers 1. For Best Supporting Actress, I went Ariana Grande for Wicked, Isabella Rossellini for Conclave, Monica Barbaro for Complete Unknown, Margaret Qualley for The Substance, and Danielle Dreadweiler for The Piano Lesson. For Best Supporting Actor, I went Kieran Culkin for A Real Pain, Jeremy Strong for The Apprentice, Stanley Tucci for Conclave, Yuri Borzov for Nora, and Josh O'Connor for Challengers. For Best Actress, I went Demi Moore, The Substance, Mikey Madison for Nora, Cynthia Erivo for Wicked, Lily Rose Depp for Nosferatu, and then Micah Monroe for Longlegs. Best Actor, Timothée Chalamet for Complete Unknown, Ray Fiennes for Conclave, Nicholas Hoult for Juror Number 2, Hugh Grant for Heretic, Glenn Powell for Hitman. Now, I should be clear, I have not seen The Brutalist, so Adrian Brody did not make it because I have not seen The Brutalist, and then I haven't seen Sing Sing. Best Director, Sean Baker for Nora, Edward Berger for Conclave, Denis Villeneuve for Dune Part 2, John M. Chu for Wicked, Jason Reitman for Saturday Night, because there's a lot of great performances in Saturday Night. It takes a really good director to get those performances out. Henceforth, I went Jason Reitman over a couple others that could have snuck in. And in my Best Picture nominees, in alphabetical order, Sonora, Challengers, Conclave, Didi, Dune Part 2, Juror Number 2, A Real Pain, The Substance, Wicked, The Wild Robot. See how fast I was? That was really fast. I told you I'd just rattle them off real quick.
All right, we got it?
And then I agree Wicked should be nominated, henceforth why I got it nominated, but it's pretty similar. By their rules, 80% has to be or can be the same. It was like 85, 90% for Wicked. Worthy of a nomination, but confusing. They got nominated and Dune 2 didn't, when the score from Dune Part 1 had probably about the same amount of percentage difference between the first movie compared to Wicked's percentage different from the musical.
All right. Well, with that, we'll go ahead and jump into the predictions here. So the way that this is going to work is I have a notepad up in front of me. I will be keeping track of what we officially predict, and we'll certainly come back to these results later on. We'll see who got more correct. Obviously, we're doing this far enough in advance that we haven't even seen necessarily everything that was nominated. There's still a couple things we're both missing. But I think that's part of the fun of it, right? Because it is not just based on what an individual has seen. It's based on a large collective, and we're going to see what that large collective does. With that said, though, to make this easier for everyone to follow along with at home, I do have visuals prepared for each of these topics as we go ahead and run through the categories. With that said, as briefly as I can read them, and for anyone who's wondered, I did have someone ask me after we did another show on this last year. I read the names off when I pull the pictures up because to me, I like credit. I like giving people the credit for what they did. Their names are there for a reason, unless you're weirdly one of the number nominees this year that just did not have names because they were being decided later. That was a weird quirk I've never seen before. So these are all the names as of this morning because I did screenshot them freshly just to make sure we were good to go. With that said, starting with Best Visual Effects. The nominees are Alien Romulus, team led by Eric Barba, Nelson Sepulveda, Falser, Daniel Macarin, and Shane Mahan. Better Man, team led by Luke Millar, David Clayton, Keith Hurft, and Peter Stubbs. Dune Part 2, team led by Paul Lambert, Stephen James, Reese Salcombe, and Jared Nefzer. Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, team led by Eric Winquist, Stephen Unterfront, Paul Story, and Rodney Burke, and Wicked, team led by Pablo Hellman, Jonathan Faulkner, David Shirk, and Paul Corbold. For anyone who's ever wondered why there are 4 names, it's because there are generally 4 major teams that work within the world of visual effects. The leaders of each team are who receive the award, just in case you didn't know. All right, so for the nominees, we have 4 Best Visual Effects. I don't think it's going to be either of the 8 films. Now, if it were my own personal choice, I would give it to Kingdom, because I do think Kingdom is the most impressive thing out of all of these, to have that extensive amount of CG work done almost completely on practical sets. The fact that they did all this mocap walking around open sets, to me, is an advancement of the technology, and I do think it is very well done within the film. But I just think, unfortunately, like 2 8 films, I think, are going to sort of cancel each other out in terms of voting.
Mm-hmm.
I like that they're both there because it gives credit to both, but unfortunately, I think they'll cancel each other out. So between the other 3 that remain, my official prediction of them is Dune Part 2. I think, obviously the consensus on the outside is that Dune Part 2 was largely underrepresented at the awards this year. And while I don't think it's going to sweep the technicals the way it did last year, I mean, it can't because it wasn't nominated at everything the way the first one was. I think visual effects were almost upped in this film compared to the first one, so I think it's a safe bet for a win.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that winning. I do think they're going to give it to Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. And I think the special, or the little special editions, or the little perks you get with the movies, I cannot think of it. Holy shit. And I didn't even take any melatonin gummies. I can't think of what they're called. The features, the special features that they release where you can watch the entire movie without the CG. I think that actually helps the movie because it shows the Academy voters
it's impressive
how impressive that work is. So I do think Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes is going to win. That alone shows just how much more impressive it is than any of these other categories. I haven't seen Better Man, hence why I did not add it to what I think should have been nominated. I was kind of stuck between Twisters and Deadpool and Wolverine, but I went Twisters just because the tornadoes looked really, really good. But I don't think the apes are going to cross each other out. Alien Romulus is kind of a dark horse to me because the visuals in that movie are wonderful too.
Or excellent.
But I do think they're going to give it the Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. So.
All right. Well, this at least makes the predictions interesting because we already have a difference in the guesses. And from the comments, we have Chris. It should go to Better Man. I see. It's interesting because traditionally, I think you would say the movie is just so wholly underseen that I think it gets I think Better Man is an example of the nomination is a win. Like the fact that it was recognized to that extent that it's in the top 5 of the year, I think does make it interesting. I just don't know if enough people would have seen it. And Malcolm does make a great point about the fact that, I would say, yes, Kingdom, in terms of like the actual movie, Kingdom doesn't do anything different than what the others did. The improvement in the technology is the fact that they're not shooting on confined sound stages. Because the previous Apes films were shot either on green screens or very confined sound stages, whereas this movie was shot on, I mean, there were sound stages used, but it also shot on wide open practical effects. When you see, is it Noah? That's the character's name, right? Noah?
I think so, yeah.
When you see Noah walking through like the rubble of San Francisco and you have these wide open spaces with all these practically built sets, that is an actor in mocap actually walking on a set, which previously was so technically hard to do that I do think this is an advancement. Yeah. But like your guys' arguments between like what you're saying about Apes and what they're saying about Better Man, that to me is why I don't think it'll win. Why I don't think either of them will win, because I think they're both doing super impressive things with apes, and it's the ape part of it that's kind of nothing new. It's the other stuff that is the cool new, but we have seen apes done well in visual effects before, whereas, and obviously I say that having picked Dune, a film that was done before, but I think the scope of the film and the action of the film is so much bigger than what was in the first one that it does make it more impressive. But with that said, we'll move on then from visual effects and we'll go on to the next category, which is makeup. Best makeup and hairstyling. The nominees here were A Different Man, Mike Marino, Dave Presto, and Crystal Gerardo. Emilia Perez, the first of 13 times I'll say that name tonight, Julia Flock Carbonell, Emmanuel Janvier, and Jean-Christophe Spadaccini. Good God, I'm going to struggle with there. Nosferatu, David White, Tracy Loader, and Suzanne Stokes Munton. The Substance, Pierre Oliver Person, Stephanie Guion, and Marilyn Scarcelli. And Wicked, Frances Hannon, Laura Blount, and Sarah Newth. Matt, who do you have this one going to?
I think this one's pretty close. Because I think with A Different Man, with some of the makeup they use on Sebastian Stan when he's in the condition prior to the surgery, I think is pretty impressive. And then the process of, his face changing into, Sebastian Stan, I think that was pretty impressive. Nosferatu, I think Orlok, the makeup on him alone is really, really good. But I think it should go to The Substance, especially like at the end where you have that monster of a creature, that's, Demi Moore and Margaret Qualley, who they're portraying. The makeup that's used for that, I think, is really, really impressive. So I do think they're going to go to Substance. I think it could go to Nosferatu, but I'm going to lean The Substance.
I'm actually on the same page with you here. I think it is The Substance. The Substance obviously has a lot of love at the Academy with its multiple nominations. Yeah. I think this is a category where it very clearly could win. I do think the spoiler, though, is A Different Man, because it is a singular piece of makeup, but it's a singular piece of makeup that's so important to the film itself that I could see why it overtakes. So and also A Different Man is a film that I think a lot of people loved, but it just A24 didn't campaign it. It wasn't most of its exposure came as a result of Sebastian Stan also being in The Apprentice. I would say Briarcliff did more for A Different Man than A24 ever did. Yeah. So I could see it being a spoiler just because people want to show the film love, and anyone who knows anything about the Oscars does know that sometimes movies win awards because they're trying to spread the love around and they're trying to show some love to different films. It's not always just a sweep. But I am going to predict The Substance. However, I could see a different man taking it. In the comments here, Malcolm also predicting The Substance. Chris saying Wicked is a close second. I do think the makeup in Wicked looks good. Like, I think Cynthia Erivo does look good. But I just think compared to, and throwing Nosferatu in there as well, I think compared to everything else, it's just more simplistic. I think there are other filmmaking techniques within Wicked that are stronger.
Yeah, I'm trying to find this photo. But there's a photo for Nosferatu. Because obviously the Count Orlok makeup is like, it's legit. And there's a lot of makeup on him on Skarsgård. And there's a picture out there with him and Lily Rose Depp, but he's in the Nosferatu makeup drinking coffee at a trailer. And I'm trying to find that photo.
Oh, yeah, no, there's tons of...
It was really funny.
Well, if you try and find that, I'll move on to Best Costume Design. The nominees were A Complete Unknown for Ariane Phillips, Conclave, Lissy Crystal, Gladiator 2, Jonty Yates and Dave Crossman, Nosferatu, Linda Muir, and Wicked, Paul Tazewell. For costume, this is a category in which I could see Wicked actually taking it, because I think the costuming of the film is extensive, and I think it is very, very well done. For a long time, I had Conclave taking it, because I think the robe work in the movie is incredible. But I think I am going to lean towards Wicked. The big thing about this category, though, which is interesting, is a lot of the times costuming is very easy to predict because the Academy has shown they have a propensity for period pieces, like the traditional period pieces, and the Academy also have a thing of sometimes in categories like this, if like, it's why I brought it up for visual effects. If there are two things that are too close to each other, they do kind of cancel each other out. Nothing here is that traditional period piece that you're looking for, and nothing here is similar to the next. So this is a category where, because even like A Complete Unknown, which I would say is probably the most basic costuming of the bunch, it is so period piece accurate, and it does such a great job of putting you in the world of Bob Dylan for the time, that any of these could win, but I think I'm going to predict Wicked.
Yeah, I think any of these could win for sure. But I will go Wicked as well. If there is a dark horse in this, I think it might be Gladiator 2. I think Gladiator 2 could be that dark horse in there that could take it over Wicked, but I do feel like this goes to Wicked, because the costumes in that are fantastic, and same with Gladiator, Nosferatu, and then Conclave. Yeah, it's popes and cloaks, and robes, popes and robes, but it's really good. Then Complete Unknown is
the
basic,
robe work is beautiful.
Yeah, Complete Unknown's very basic, but it's spot on. But I feel like because it's as basic as it is, spot on, I don't think it's going to win. I think that when people are going to vote, they're going to look at, well, Wicked and Gladiator 2, like Gladiator 2 is a little bit different because of the Roman times, but especially Wicked is like so good. But then it's like with Complete Unknown, they might look and go, well, I see 10 people in LA wearing this every day, so I'm not going to vote for that.
So are you saying Wicked officially?
Wicked wins. Gladiator 2 is my dark horse, but I do think Wicked wins it.
All right.
Or should I say Roman horse?
Then we'll go on to production design. For best production design, the nominees are The Brutalist, production design by Judy Becker, set decoration by Patricia Cuccia. Conclave, production design by Susie Davies, set decoration by Cynthia Slater. Dune Part 2, production design by Patrice Vermette, set decoration by Shane Vaillant. Nosferatu, production design by Craig Lathrop, set decoration by Beatrice Brent Nerova, and Wicked, production design by Nathan Crowley, set decoration by Lee Sandales. Matt, where are you headed on this production design.
I'm going Wicked again. There's a lot of things you would think are CG with some of like the backgrounds on the production, but it's all real. Like there's scenes where they have like a million roses that are just out. And you would think, oh, they'll CG that. No, they ordered a million roses to be out there. And just a lot of the sets and stuff are like just the designing of all that is very impressive. I'm going to go Wicked for the win. I haven't seen The Brutalist, but I feel like that could be a potential winner too. But I think it's Wicked right now by a decent margin.
So I do think Wicked is the one that could definitely, I see it coming second. I am actually going to go with Conclave on this, because the set dressing and the cathedrals themselves, I think, are so masterfully done. I mean, it is absolutely beautiful work, the way that they set all of this up. And I do genuinely think the genuineness of the sets does a lot to put you in the movie. It's like, or to put you in the setting, I should say. I think it does a lot to put you there, because the thing, right, is, and I'm looking this up just because I wanted to make sure I got my facts correct on it. Specifically, even though the movie was shot in Rome, it was shot at a studio, Cinecittà Studios in Rome. The cathedrals, and specifically the Sistine Chapel, were recreations. They did not shoot in the actual chapels. So to recreate it, rooms and sets that big, that masterfully, that incredibly, but also, and this is going to sound weird compared to the extravagantness of Wicked, but the bare bones nature of the complex that they're staying at, and the coloring of the sets, and the way that I think the coloring affects the mood of the film at times, just the same way as with the robes. I think that is so important to setting the uneasy tone that the movie is carrying a lot of the times. And I think that is just as important as Wicked. Honestly, again, Wicked could win it. But weirdly enough, this is one of those instances where I wonder if the fact that we know there is a part 2 for Wicked and that they were shot at the same time could affect it winning. Because I think this year specifically, Conclave, I also think Nosferatu could be a great spoiler for its production design. There are so many strong choices that I wonder if people will kind of go for those over Wicked, because they know that there's a part 2 coming, and obviously the work and care that John Chu and his team put into the film is on the screen. It's evident, but that's not going to disappear for part 2. And I wonder if that would play a part in it. That said, again, if anything aside from Conclave wins, I think it would be Wicked, but I'm going to go with Conclave just to make it different.
Okay. Now, trying to think, because that's a pretty good point. Yeah, it's hard for me to think sometimes, but that's a pretty good point with that. As far as maybe Wicked not winning it this year because of that. I decided to look it up though to see if Lord of the Rings had that issue, because obviously it was nominated for a ton of awards every single year, and I haven't seen Fellowship of the Ring yet. Here it is. It won Best Production Design for all 3 movies. So, I mean, that could be a good point. Like, maybe people will give it to Conclave, but it has happened in the past for multiple movies that they knew were going to come out, ended up winning production design.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't disagree with you. I think it has a chance, but I think because, at least to me, it's not the clear standout, I think I could see it going a different direction.
Maybe.
All right, so with that, we'll move on to Best Sound, which for those of you who may or may not remember, it is now 1 category, not 2. But for Best Sound, we have A Complete Unknown, Todd A. Maitland, Donald Sylvester, Ted Kaplan, Paul Massey, and David Gianmarco. Dune Part 2, Gareth John, Richard King, Ron Bartlett, and Doug Hemphill. Amelia Perez, Erwan Kurzanet, Aymeric Devoldiri, Maxence Dusseri, Cyril Holt, and Niels Barletta. Wicked, Simon Hayes, Nancy Nugent, Title, Jack Dolman, Andy Nelson, and Jean Marquis. And The Wild Robot, Randy Tom, Brian Chumney, Gary A. Rizzo, and Jeff Lefferts. Again, to answer another question that I know I discussed with someone previously, with the merging of the categories, all the nominees still get their nomination. That's why there's more names. It's the merging of the two into one award, not two separate awards. But everyone who would have won previously still gets an award. So no one lost out on by them merging it. Best sound is an interesting one. I could see Dune getting it. I could see The Wild Robot getting it.
Mm-hmm.
I also could see A Complete Unknown getting it. Because sound is so important to that film. And specifically, I think of the third act and the shredding of the guitar and the music.
Yeah.
Like, that is such a big piece of that film. I don't know. Where's your head at? I don't think it'll be... I don't think Wicked will actually take this one. I think the sound is well done in the movie, but I think there are just too many other contenders for it to take this. Like, if Wicked wins this award, then that's like a sign of like a Wicked sweep. But I don't think it will.
Yeah, I'm going with Dune on this. Okay. There's like just the sounds, like for example, when they put the thingy in the sand that like calls the sandworms, that noise, sandworms themselves, that noise, the ships. There's a lot of stuff in there that uses sound very, very good. Sound is always one where I'm like, look, I could see any of them winning because every movie has sound and movies are supposed to sound good. So like if I was voting at the Oscars and I was voting best sound, I'd be like, I don't know. they all have volume. They sound fine. But I do think it would be Dune Part 2. Amelia Perez probably got nominated because it's Amelia Perez, and we have to nominate it for all these awards because, you know, we're very, I don't know, accepting is the word. Like, you know, look at us, pat us on the back. We accept everyone. Let's nominate this movie. But I do think it's Dune.
Yeah, you make a great point. It's so interesting. I do think Dune has a great chance. I do. But something in my gut is telling me to go with A Complete Unknown. Because I feel like there is enough history of music-related films winning sound that I think it has a fair chance. I mean, I just, you know, for the sake of like having examples, I punched it into Google just to see what came up. And some recent examples of films that heavily rely on music winning the sound awards include Sound of Metal a couple of years ago, Bohemian Rhapsody, Whiplash, Chicago, Ray, Dreamgirls. What I'm saying is the argument I'm making could just as simply apply to Amelia Perez. But I've not seen the film, and morally, I don't really support what the movie's about, so I'm not going to be predicting it very much. And if I'm wrong, I'm okay with that. But just something about A Complete Unknown, the sound in that movie and the tuning of the instruments was something that really stood out to me when watching it. I feel like every time they start to play a song, he starts to play the guitar or he starts to riff on the harmonica, it like draws you back in. And I think that could be a place where A Complete Unknown wins. Because frankly, I don't know how many other places it is the strongest contender to pick up a win. So I could see it doing it here. But also, don't discount The Wild Robot, because the fact that an animated film made it into a category like this means it has a fighting chance.
Yeah,
animated movies don't make it into other categories just to make it. They make it because they have a chance.
Yeah.
So, all right. So yeah, you said Dune, right? Okay.
Yeah, I said Dune.
All right, cool. So then we'll move on to Best Original Score. And for Best Original Score, we have Daniel Blumberg for The Brutalist, Volker Bertelmann for Conclave, Clement Ducol and Camille for Emilia Perez, John Powell and Stephen Schwartz for Wicked, and Chris Bowers for The Wild Robot. Again, what I said before, don't discount Chris Bowers for The Wild Robot, because if an animated film is making it outside of its own category, it has a genuine chance.
Yeah.
However, this is one of the places I think I'm going to give the edge to Emilia Perez. Because I think when we get to Best Original Song, we'll see that it is almost inevitable that it's going to win the song award. I think the instrumentation and the musicality of the film is one of the few things that has been mostly praised. If you see the actual film, I know the La Vagini Plista or whatever the fuck it's called has been going around on TikTok, or whatever is in your country. But I do think, look, there's a large international piece of the Academy that's there. There's a large international piece of the Academy that love the music. And I just think that this is a place, and keep in mind, I'm also thinking about the ranked choice voting system of you essentially just have to not be last at any given point in a vote count to make it to the next round. I think that this is an instance where people will concede enough to Emilia Perez that it'll make it through. Because I'm just going to be honest, like, I loved Conclave. It's one of my favorite films of the year. And while that riff that they kept playing at the Oscars didn't do Volker Bertelmann any favors when he won a couple of years ago, just that same wah, wah, wah. His score for All Quiet was excellent, and I think he did deserve the win. I can't really tell you any of the music from Conclave. It doesn't stick out in my mind. And Wicked, again, this is an instance where, though the compositional score is great, I think this is a case of maybe the fact that there's more coming could see it kind of hold off, especially because from everything I've heard about the musical, the second part is kind of the weaker half of the musical music-wise. So I could see them doing just as good a job with that, almost enhancing its chances at winning. So I'm going to go with Emilia Perez. Because at the end of the day, whether or not outsiders like the film, it has 13 nominations. The odds that it goes home with just a win or two, I think, are slim. It's going to take some stuff, and I think music could be that.
So, did you see The Brutalist yet, or no?
I have not. I literally have it. My tickets for later this week.
Okay, I'm seeing it later.
I have the opportunity to see it in a film print, so I've been waiting to get the chance to go do that.
Nice. So maybe my thoughts will change when I see The Brutalist. This is tough because like there's not a score that's just sticking out to me like Oppenheimer did last year. Like this is just not a year where there's a score that just like smacks me in the face. And I just love it. Like, Man of Steel, I think, say what you will about that movie, that had a score that smacked me in the face and probably should have been nominated for Best Score if it wasn't. God. I think it comes down to Wicked or The Wild Robot. It could be Amelia Perez too, but the score isn't like something I look at as like what it could win. Song, it feels like it's guaranteed, but like
Mhm.
the score was nothing crazy. I will go Wicked because Wicked won't have, because it's not an original song for whatever reason, it's original score, but it doesn't have a song nominated for best song. So I
Well,
think,
it didn't have an original song.
yeah, but I do think the score of Wicked is really good, and that's the one I think that's going to win. I could see the Wild Robot winning. It has a really good score, but I do think the Wild Robot's going to win in another category, which is why I think maybe they won't give it to it in this category. I'm going to go Wicked because it is a really good score.
All right. So I have Emilia Perez. Matt has Wicked. We'll go ahead and move on to Best Film Editing. The nominees for this one were Honora, Sean Baker, The Brutalist, David Junkso, Conclave, Nick Emerson, Emilia Perez, Juliette Welfling, and Wicked, Myron Kirstein. I'm going to be honest, sight unseen, I'm going to guess The Brutalist.
Okay.
Having not seen the film, I think I'm going to go with The Brutalist because one of the things that I have heard is that the editing behind the film is strongly paced enough that despite its monstrous runtime and the fact there's an intermission, you don't necessarily fully feel it. So I'm gonna go with that. I think Conclave could spoil it as well because I think Conclave is masterfully edited, but I've just heard such strong things about the Brutalist editing that I think I'm gonna go for it without having seen it.
I'm going to Nora. I
Okay.
think there's some scenes in the movie where the editing is really, really good. And I think the fact that it's Sean Baker that edits this movie, with it being a director, I think that makes it more impressive than having like a separate person editing a movie. You have the director themselves editing it. I'm gonna
So
go
I was
Sean
gonna.
Baker, and I agree with Chris. I think Challenger should be nominated for best editing.
I agree.
But I'm gonna go Nora. I think that's gonna win.
I agree. I Challengers would have been an instinctive pick for editing. I think it has very snappy, quick editing that does stand out. But I think unfortunately Luca. I think Luca should have just pushed. I think Luca should have pushed Challengers the full year.
Yeah.
And if that meant that it released alongside Queer or Queer itself got pushed as well, I just think similar to Dune, I just think both of these movies were movies that kind of, and actually I'm going to throw Sing Sing in there as well.
Yeah.
People forget that release dates really, really do affect the Oscars because the people voting, like people in the actual industry, they're as crazy as it sounds, because of the lives they live, they're not actually as inundated in watching films and the film calendar and the film world as film fans are. And I think people often forget that fact. It's why campaigning is such a big part of it, because it is basically the studios paying a buttload of money to say, remember me, I'm here, don't forget about me, remember me. And I think that both Challengers and Dune, while financially it may have benefited them, they just came out too early in the year that without proper campaigning, it didn't make sense. Amazon not campaigning Challengers did make sense because they put their money behind Nickel Boys, and it obviously worked out to some extent for them. Not as much as they would have wanted, but it did work out. And I don't know why Warner didn't campaign for Dune because they're not really represented here at all. So
I think
kind of a choice, guys, but
maybe they
spent the money to a tax break. They got a tax break on their campaign budgets. But
yeah, and I think part of it too is you had like Everything Everywhere All at Once come out in like March, and then it won Best Picture. So I think some people were thinking, well, do release dates actually matter anymore? Because if a movie coming out in March can win, Coda was that early in the year, or was that like middle, like August? Because that obviously won Best Picture and
I want to
Best
say it
Supporting
was the
Actor.
middle of the year.
I can remember, and then obviously Oppenheimer was the start of the second half.
Coda, yeah. So Coda premiered at Sundance, but
Yeah.
debuted in August.
Okay, I wasn't 100% sure when it did, but I knew I saw it early. But yeah. So I think like within Everything Everywhere All at Once, with how it dominated at the Oscars with like supporting actress picture. I think that's, and in other awards, I think that
But
made studios go, well, should we fund as much as we used to?
But the thing about Everything Everywhere All at Once is like that movie was campaigned. Like
Yeah.
that movie, both on a studio level, like A24 really put their weight behind the movie and their money behind it and campaigned it. But
Yeah.
people forget, like, that movie also had, Hollywood icons like Michelle Yeoh and very specifically Jamie Lee Curtis. Like, I know people like to
Yeah.
give her shit because she won her Oscar for that movie, but like, she was out with the cast, hitting the ground hard, going to parties, campaigning for the movie, getting people to see it and realize what great work it is.
Yeah. And then
I mean,
Kiwi
it is,
Kwan too.
yeah,
Like just his
Ke
story.
Kwan's like story with like his comeback and motivating people to want to see the work, and then also like, and I think an underrated part of it, and maybe part of it is because they chose not to take Oscars for the movie, but the Russos and Agbo were also behind the film, and they could invest money into it and help campaign it. And I understand that the Russos to a lot of people are just the Avengers guys, but even just being the Avengers guys has weight in Hollywood. It's why they can get basically anything they want made for any price. And
look,
so
real quick, they're not the Avengers guys, Aaron. They're the cherry guys. That's what they are.
Well, if we're going that route, they're the gray man guys.
They're the gray man. What Warner Brothers should have done was campaign more, and then they also should have re-released it in theaters.
Yes.
Because it would have made money.
Yeah, I don't know what Warner. I don't know what they were doing, frankly. But
look who owns them.
Because that's another one. For the same reason that I'm giving The Brutalist credit, like Dune Part 2 does not feel its runtime. It's edited excellently. Like it could have been in this conversation, but it's not. The point I was going to make before we move on real quick, and I don't want to get stuck in on this too hard, but I think Anora is excellently edited. I still wouldn't give it to it naturally. I think specifically my biggest problem with the film is I think that the second half goes on, or the second act goes on for a little too long, but not like overall individually, like scene by scene. I think each segment just kind of goes on for a little too long. It feels like it starts to feel like to me Baker's just a little bit too much in love with the pratfalls and stuff like that, and we're not getting to it. We could move quicker while still making the point. So that's my one real gripe with the movie. Otherwise, it is excellent. But do you think that people would want to give Baker the win, seeing as how he obviously he is an editor because he edits his own films, but he is a director. And he's also considered by many to be a frontrunner for the screenplay Oscar. Do you foresee people wanting to give him an editing Oscar as well for not being a career editor? Rather than, and I understand that is arbitrary. At the end of the day, the editors nominated him, but sometimes arbitrary does play a part in who wins.
I mean, it could, but like I said, I think the fact he directed this movie and then edited it too, I think that's pretty impressive because it's not easy to do both. No. I haven't done it, so I can't really say with 100% certainty, but I would imagine it's not just like easy to do it on your own. But maybe it does. But I could also see it in a way of they're like, look, we're going to give Brady Corbett the Oscar for director, so we'll give Sean Baker the editing because I don't know if it's going to win best screenplay too.
All right, well, we'll get to there in a little bit. First, before we do, and you did have Anora winning, right?
Yeah, and Nora.
Okay, we'll move on to Best Cinematography. We have The Brutalist, Lowell Crawley, Dune Part 2, Greg Fraser, Amelia Perez, Paul Guillaume, Maria, Ed Lachman, and Nosferatu, Jarin Blachki. Interesting how for the second film in a row, Pablo Larraín can't get a nomination outside of cinematography. Shout out to his cinematographers. I don't remember if it was the same guy or not, but shout out to his cinematographers for getting in there. Clearly, he knows what he's doing on that front. I think personally, Nosferatu, even just from the trailers, Nosferatu is fucking beautiful to look at.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if the Academy is going to go for a horror. On the whole, they're going to go for a horror film that's not really in the race much elsewhere outside of technicals. So for me, it's between Dune and The Brutalist. I don't know. Where's your head at?
This is one where I was like genuinely shocked. Where's Conclave?
Yeah, I agree.
Conclave should not. That is a legitimate snub because not only should it have been nominated, I think it should have won Best Cinematography. It's a beautiful movie, but since it's not nominated, I am going to go Nosferatu because it is stunning to look at. Maria is really good too. Like, has really, it's a really good cinematography wise. And Amelia Perez, okay, it looks nice. Why is it nominated over Conclave? I don't know. But it doesn't look bad. Like, it looks good. I didn't watch the movie and went, wow, the cinematography here is great. And like you said, The Brutalist, that's one that looked really good too. To me, it comes down to Dune and Nosferatu. I'm going to go Nosferatu.
You're going with Nosferatu?
Yeah. Also, Nosferatu, it's not going to win or have a chance anywhere else, I don't think. So it feels like this would be the category to award it.
I guess I'm saying I think it's going to be iced out.
Yeah, I understand why you say, but I do think they're going to lean that way. Just because, clearly with Substance, they're clearly showing that they'll nominate horror and they'll probably award it too. So I think Nosferatu, I still think it's going to, even though it's not like a front runner for like the big awards or nominate for any of the big awards, I think it's going to win here. I think this is its best chance and they'll give it to Nosferatu here.
I won't disagree with you about it being its best chance. I think I'm going to go with Crawley for The Brutalist.
Okay.
Only because I looked it up because I wanted to fact check myself. Fraser won for the first film.
Mm-hmm.
And again, if we're just... He won for the first... Oh, man, that's hard. He won for the first film, but he also, a couple of years ago, got a lot of attention for being, like, publicly considered a huge snub for the Batman.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm going to stick with my guess. I think it's going to go to The Brutalist. I think just the sweeping nature of the film and its cinematography, I think, is going to help it win here. I think Fraser is really, really talented. I could see him getting it for the third film, because he's reported to come back again for the third one to do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I could see him being the spoiler. I could see Blachki being the spoiler. I literally don't know anything about Maria. I don't think I've ever seen a trailer for it, so I couldn't tell you what chance it has.
Really good looking movie. Looks really good.
All right, so then we'll move on here to Best Original Song. The nominees are El Mal from Emilia Perez, music by Clement Ducal and Camille, lyrics by Clement Ducal, Camille, and Jacques Audiard. The Journey from the 6888, music and lyrics by Diane Warren. Like a Bird from Sing Sing, music and lyrics by Abraham Alexander and Adrian Quesada. Mi Camino from Emilia Perez, music and lyrics by Camille and Clement Ducol, and Never Too Late from Elton John. Never Too Late, music and lyrics by Elton John, Brandi Carlile, Andrew Watt, and Bernie Taupin. As much as I would like to see Elton win, something tells me he's not gonna, just because he's not gonna be there. I have to imagine that's half the reason why they're not doing the songs this year. I know they came out and said, like, because of everything that's going on in LA, it felt that it wasn't right. But, like, let's just be real here. 2 musical numbers from Emilia Perez, another Diane Warren stand-in performance, which people were such big fans of last year, and an absent Elton John. I just think they don't want to really try. I think this was a shit year for songs, because even the songs that missed, like the 2 big songs people were talking about that missed were, I believe it's Compress Regress or Repress from Challengers, which is cool, but, like, I don't know, man. It just kind of sounds like more score to me. Like, I know it's technically a song, but it sounds like more score to me. And then Kiss the Sky, which I think was a good song in the context of the movie, but I also didn't find it be particularly memorable or stand out in any way.
Yeah.
I don't feel it. Like, I'm sad it's not here, but, like, the Sing Sing song from the credits of Sing Sing getting in, I also think is a cool thing. But I also don't think that's, like, a super big memorable song that deserves a win either. This is going to be El Mal, though, right? Like,
yeah, it's me, El Mal. See, I do think Never Too Late is a dark horse, because Elton John's done. I mean, he's won an Oscar, though, so that's why maybe he doesn't win this. If he hadn't won an Oscar, I would have probably said Never Too Late.
I would agree with you,
because it's like, look, let's get him that Oscar. But part of me thinks, hey, he's done, and they've given Oscars to people who haven't shown up before. Like Anthony Hopkins didn't show up for Best Actor.
Yeah.
They had to do a video after. So maybe they go with it because Elton John's done. But I do think it's El Mal. That seems to be the one. Although Mi Camino won, is it not the Spirit Award? It won an award, I think, today or yesterday. But I think
I hadn't caught that.
Yeah, I can't remember. I just saw it on Twitter. I was like, oh, I didn't even know this award show was going on.
All right, so we'll go ahead and move on. Do you want to throw the short film predictions in? I mean, we have no concept of this. We're just guessing off a title. But do you want to make a prediction for fun?
I mean, if you're writing them down and then we're going to revisit after the Oscars, yeah. Might as well. So we at least do a prediction. This is normally that
cool,
one.
Then we'll do it. So the live action short film nominees are Aline by Sam Cutler-Creutz and David Cutler-Creutz, Anuya, I'm assuming how that's said, Adam J. Graves, and Suchitra Matai. I'm Not a Robot by Victoria Warmerdam and Trent. The Last Ranger by Cindy Lee and Darwin Shaw. And The Man Who Could Not Remain Silent by Nebosia Slidge. I'm not going to even try. I'm going to butcher that. It's a high hell. All right. So what do you think out of those? Who do you think, just based off title and instinct?
I would go The Man Who Could Not Remain Silent. I'll just guess that. I'm going to watch them all. So either I was spot on with how I'm going to feel, or I might be like, oh, actually, this isn't even that good. And I will say, Mi Camino won Best Original Song at the Satellite Awards.
Okay.
That's why I didn't know there was an award show, because I didn't know there was a Satellite Awards. What is it? Is it another movie show by Comcast? I don't know. But yeah, it won at the Satellite Awards. So I don't know. The tides are turning. Either way, that movie's going to win one. But I'll go The Man Who Could Not Remain Silent by Nebosia Slidge.
By the way, I do. Once you said it, I do actually know what the Satellite Awards are. They're the awards for the International Press Academy. So it's basically like a guild for press.
So it's Golden Globes, but not.
Golden Globes, but not just foreign. Because Golden Globes is specifically foreign.
Oh, okay.
All right. And then I'm going to go with I'm Not a Robot.
Okay.
Just because. I don't know, AI. I'm assuming that's what it is. Animated short film, Beautiful Men, Nicholas Keppens and Brecht von Elslande, In the Shadow of the Cypress, Shirin Sohani and Hossein Molayemi, Magic Candies, Daisuke Nishio and Takashi Washio, Wander to Wonder, Nina Gantz and Stinnette Bosklopper, and Yuck, Loich Espuche, and Juliette Marquette.
Magic candies. What are they? I don't know. It's drugs, probably. It's probably drugs. It's LSD. It's magic
drugs.
Candies. Yep. Just say LSD.
That's what we're going with? We're going with drugs?
Yep. Drugs. That's what I'm going with. Could be LSD. You know, it could be, I don't know, some of the others. Does it involve a needle? Is it a pill? Don't know. I'll find out when I check it out. It's probably some like whimsical, magical adventure about two kids going on this journey to another universe, and then they find magic candy. Don't eat the candy, kids.
All right, you've sold me. I'll go magic candies as well.
Candies,
Why not?
there you go.
Why not? All right. Well, we gave that its due diligence. We'll move on to documentaries. We'll do the short one first, just to get these over with in one shot. So we have Death by Numbers, Kim A. Snyder and Janique L. Robillard. I Am Ready, Warden by Smriti Mundra and Maya Nip, I'm going to say. Incident with by Bill Morrison and Jamie Colvin. Instruments of a Beating Heart by Emma Ryan Yamazaki and Eric Nayari. And The Only Girl in the Orchestra, Molly O'Brien and Lisa Remington. What is your pick here?
So I could tell you what Magic Candies is about real quick. I'll read it to you. It's a little different. It tells the quirky story of Dong Dong, a boy who prefers playing marbles alone. He purchases a bag of colorful marble-shaped candies, and he soon discovers that when he pops one in his mouth, his old sofa begins to speak with him. I am very happy I chose that as my prediction. I'm very happy. Documentary feature. I've seen none of these.
Documentary short.
Documentary short. Well, I haven't seen any of those either. I will say I Am Ready, Warden. That's what I'll go with. Sounds like an emotional journey. I Am Ready, Warden. Because it sounds like a magic, or not magical. It sounds like a very emotional type of documentary. It feels like something that would win. All these sound like it, but that one especially feels pretty emotional.
All right. Then we have, by the way, I'm going to go with The Only Girl in the Orchestra for one reason and one reason only. I know that it's on Netflix.
It is.
So
okay.
It is easily the most seen of these because it's the only one that I think has proper distribution yet.
Okay.
All right. Next up, we have Best Documentary Feature Film. We have Black Box Diaries, Shiori Ito, Eric Nayari, and Hannah Akvilin. No Other Land, Basil Adra, Rachel Zor, Hamdan Balal, and Yuval Abraham. Porcelain War, Brendan Belomo, Salva Leontiev, Anelia Sidorska, and Paula Dupree Pesman. Soundtrack to a Coup d'etat, Johan Grimonprez, Dan Milius, and Remy Grilletti, and Sugarcane, whose nominees will be named later. I'm going to go with No Other Land on this one simply because of its topic and its context, what it's about, which that being the conflict in Palestine. And it's a documentary that is made by people who were on. I don't think they were necessarily politically aligned with either side, but it was made by a mixture of people who were in Palestine and in Israel, and it kind of shows both sides of the conflict as much as I think one can. This film has been highly controversial, but also I think highly effective. And the fact that it was even nominated, I think makes it, like, to me, going into the nominations, my thought process was, if something like this even makes the noms, I think it has a very, very good chance of winning. And so I'm going to predict it.
I'll go with you. I know a lot of people are freaking out about why was Superman not nominated. A lot of people really upset about that. And that's the one that most people have seen. Like, I would say 99 times the people, like 99 to 1, have seen that compared to the others. And then the other one, which I'm actually really shocked wasn't nominated, was Will and Harper. That felt like something that would get nominated because you have not just Will Ferrell and Harper in it, but you have all these other Hollywood people. And it's a very good documentary. So I thought that would have snuck in, but they didn't.
So this is my thought on this, and I wonder what, I don't want to spend too long on it, but I wonder what you think. I think that Hollywood aren't into documentaries about other people in Hollywood, because I think, as we've seen over the last few years, we've seen movies like Will and Harper, movies like Superman, still the Michael J. Fox film from a couple years ago, documentaries that are very, very great, and documentaries that I think give a great insight into documentaries that give a great insight into people that we recognize. I just don't think Hollywood is into them. The other one that I wanted to pull up was Senior, which was the Robert Downey Jr. doc about his father.
Yeah.
Like, these are highly well-regarded, well-made documentaries that are about people in Hollywood that received a lot of praise and acclaim at award shows done by those outside of Hollywood, but when it came to the Academy Awards, they didn't make the cut. I just think Hollywood prefers documentaries that aren't about themselves. I think they prefer documentaries that are actually about something. And documentaries that are about people within Hollywood that are well made appeal to those outside of Hollywood because we don't know the people, and it's a great insight into that story, right? Like, and maybe I'm wrong, but any of the information that you could learn from Still, or any of the information that you could learn from Will and Harper, I feel like is information that you could learn if you've had a conversation with Michael J. Fox or Will Ferrell. And people in Hollywood are more likely to have done that than people who watch it at home.
I mean, that could be. I think with like a Superman, I don't think that would play as big of a factor because of the story itself and just the story of Christopher Reeves and everything he's done and how impactful that is. And then it emotionally, it delivers. Like, it hits hard emotionally. And I feel like, I don't know. Like I said, I'm not freaking out about it simply because I haven't seen any of these documentaries.
Exactly.
So I could watch the documentaries and I could be like, well, blah, 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 worthy getting in. These are all really good, but Superman should have gotten in over this. Will and Harper should have gotten in over that. So I'm not freaking out about it like other people. People freak out about it because it's the thing they recognize. And then, like, I didn't see this reaction from Will and Harper not being in or Still not getting in. There's the Jim Carrey one where he was playing Andy,
the Man on the Moon doc.
Man on the Moon. Yeah, that I thought should have got nominated because it was one of the better documentaries I've seen, period. And I think it shows that Jim Carrey should have won the Oscar that year because of how, like, just invested he was and how great he was and spot on he was. But again, I haven't seen any of these, but the Superman one is like the first time I've seen a documentary not getting nominated get this kind of reaction ever.
Yeah, I don't know. I just feel like I think I wonder if my point has validity because even the other ones
It
you
might.
mentioned, like the Jim Carrey one, like, and I get what you're saying about like the Christopher Reeve one not being about someone who's modern and being about someone who like but still it's
Didn't
all
the
about a
Mr.
Hollywood
Rogers?
figure and it's about Hollywood figures talking about a Hollywood figure. Like it's stuff that I think really, if well made, it really appeals to the general audiences who connected with him.
Yeah.
I just don't know if the Academy sees that as something worthy of a nomination compared to like, again, think of something like No Other Land and like what it is you're
Yeah.
following. Like part of me wonders if they just don't respect documentaries about celebrities.
Maybe, but then Won't You Be My Neighbor get nominated? I'm not sure. I thought it did. I could be wrong. But I mean, if it didn't get nominated, I think that points to your theory being even more true.
I'm looking up now.
Okay.
It was not.
It was not. So maybe you're
No.
right. That
So
could be.
Morgan Neville individually was nominated by the PGA and the DGA for his efforts in producing and directing the doc. The movie as a picture, it did not make any award show run by the industry as a straight documentary. It was just his efforts as a filmmaker were nominated by the PGA and the DGA.
That's crazy,
Yep.
especially with him being nominated at the PGA and DGA. But
actually,
so you might be
if
right.
I remember correctly, Marielle Heller's film was more nominated than that because at least Tom Hanks got nominated.
Yeah, he did.
So yeah,
yeah. So you might be right. That could be true.
I've noticed a pattern over the years. Anytime there's a celebrity driven film, it never gets nominated, and I do think it is just kind of that. And the other thing is, I don't know how many people watch documentaries that aren't Best Picture nominees that aren't driven by a celebrity.
Yeah.
And I say that as someone who genuinely doesn't watch very many documentaries aside from ones that go up for the Oscars.
Right.
But I also, admittedly, documentary is not my preferred art form, and I've not seen any of the documentaries we just referenced about celebrities. I've also not seen. So, for what it's worth. All right, let's move on because we spent longer on that than I think anyone would. But it's interesting discussion. Best international feature film, we have Emilia Perez, which is submitted by France in the Spanish language, directed by Jacques Audiard. Flow, which was submitted by Latvia, directed by Gintz Zoolodis. The Girl with the Needle, submitted by Denmark in Danish, directed by Magnus von Horn. I'm Still Here, submitted by Brazil in Portuguese, directed by Walter Salles. And The Seed of the Sacred Fig, submitted by Germany in Persian, directed by Mohammad Rasulov. Okay. I'm gonna swing for the fences on this one. I think I'm Still Here is going to win this.
Yeah.
Because the momentum for that film is only growing.
Mm-hmm.
And Emilia Perez will have enough of a fight back that when you take into account the ranked choice voting system, I think I'm Still Here is going to fare better overall than Emilia Perez. Like, I don't think Emilia... So for anyone who doesn't know, to explain, by the way, the way that ranked choice voting works is the Academy will count the number of votes given to each film by placement, and then the one with the least amount of votes is eliminated, and then they will count second, and then they will count third, right? So, like, to use these 5 films, Emilia Perez, Flow, Girl with the Needle, I'm Still Here, Seed of the Sacred Fig, what would happen is they would count the first place vote on each ballot. And let's say Girl with the Needle has the least amount of first place votes. it is eliminated from contention, it cannot win the award.
Mm-hmm.
Then they will move on to second place votes, and they'll go back through and they'll count every single ballot for who ranked the film second. And at that point, I think, and so on and so forth from there. I think Emilia Perez is so divisive that I think it's going to have a lot of number ones and a lot of number fives. And so while it won't be eliminated first, I think it will fall out of contention somewhere in the middle, so much so that I'm going to go so far as to say that if I'm Still Here doesn't win it, I think Flow has a better chance of winning it.
Okay.
Because I think Flow is a film that is loved and is contending in another category, as we'll get to in a minute. So I'm going to predict I'm Still Here.
Yeah, I would really love to see Flow win. The director is winning me over, just like with the social media posts and stuff, just about the movie, where you just tell he's so grateful to even be nominated. I don't think that's going to win. I think the fact that it was not nominated for Best Picture, to me, kind of cancels it out, along with Girl with the Needle and Seed of the Sacred Fig. So it really does come down to I'm Still Here and Emilia Perez. I think Emilia Perez wins, and then I think I'm Still Here is second, but I could see I'm Still Here winning. But I do think they want to give Emilia Perez a big award. This would be the big award. So I'm going to go Emilia Perez, but I do think because of the dark cloud of controversy that is over Emilia Perez, it could hurt that movie in some of these bigger categories, and that could push I'm Still Here in this one to win. But I'm going to go Emilia Perez. I'll go with the favorite at the moment.
All right. Then we'll go ahead and move on to animated feature. We have Flow, whose nominees will be determined later. Inside Out 2, Kelsey Mann and Mark Nilsson. Memoir of a Snail, Adam Elliott and Liz Kearney. Wallace and Gromit, Vengeance Most Foul, whose nominees will be determined later. And The Wild Robot, Chris Sanders and Jeff Herman. Again, I think if anything were to spoil the favorite here, it's going to be Flow. Mm-hmm. But I do see The Wild Robot winning this pretty straightforward for me.
Yeah, I think The Wild Robot wins pretty easily. I think Flow is starting to kind of get in the conversation. It's definitely cemented itself as second here. I think Wallace and Gromit came out a little bit too late for it to be like a serious contender. Memoir of a Snail is like that artsy animated movie that gets nominated every year. I don't see that having a shot. Then Inside Out 2, maybe that could sneak in and surprise everybody. I mean, Disney has had a lot of success with their movies. I don't think it's going to win, but the movie is pretty great. And but it also did come out. Well, it came out in July. That's not terrible. But maybe that's like number 3. But I think it's The Wild Robot by far.
I think so. From off my own personal taste and opinion, though it is very close, I would still give it to Inside Out 2. Okay. I think Inside Out 2 loses this for the same reason Spider-Verse lost last year. It's a sequel to something we've seen before that's already won the Oscar, whereas similar to Hayao Miyazaki's The Boy and the Heron, The Wild Robot is something different. It's something unique, and I think it's a great take on what it's going for.
Yeah.
With that said, we'll move on from animated then to original screenplay. The nominees are Anora, Sean Baker, The Brutalist, written by Brady Corbett and Mona Fastvold, A Real Pain, written by Jesse Eisenberg, September 5, written by Moritz Binder and Tim Feldbaum, co-written by Alex David, and The Substance, written by, I want to hear you pronounce this again.
The Coralie Farget?
Coralie Farja.
Farjo?
Yeah, close enough, yeah.
Okay.
But it's Coralie, like Coraline, but without the N.
Okay. Coralie. Cool.
Coralie Farja. I think this is where Sean Baker's going to win his award, personally. I think the writing in Anora is absolutely masterful. Unfortunately, again, similar with the editing, I think his direction and how long he sort of holds on some things are the biggest issue with the film. And I think compared to some of the other grander nominees, that's going to find it harder to break through. But the movie is so well written that I think this is where he will get his flowers, because I think he will get flowers at some point in the night. The spoiler for me would be A Real Pain. I just think, unfortunately, the movie not having the momentum to even get Best Picture kind of hurts its chances of winning anywhere where it's not an obvious pick. So I'm going to go with Anora.
I'm also going Anora, but I do think the dark horse is A Real Pain. Yeah. I think because, and the reason why I think that is, again, I think the Oscars do want to spread the love. And, you know, yeah, maybe that for A Real Pain is Kieran Culkin, but it might be A Real Pain for screenplay as well. But I do think Anora wins at the moment.
Absolutely. All right, so we're agreed on that. We'll move on to adapted. Best adapted screenplay. The nominees are A Complete Unknown, written by James Mangold and Jay Cox, based on the book Dylan Goes Electric by Elijah Wald. Conclave, written by Peter Strawn, based on the novel by Robert Harris. Amelia Perez, written by Jacques Audiard, in collaboration with Thomas Bidagain, Leah Missus, and Nicholas Levesque, based on the opera libretto Amelia Perez by Jacques Audiard. God, even the nomination is pretentious. Nickel Boys, written by Ramel Ross and Jocelyn Barnes, based on the novel The Nickel Boys by Colson Whitehead. And Sing Sing, screenplay by Greg Quidar and Clint Bentley, story by Greg Quidar, Clint Bentley, Clarence Macklin, and John Devine G. Whitfield, based on the book The Sing Sing Follies by John H. Richardson. I would love nothing more than for Sing Sing to win this award, but similarly, I think it just lost too much momentum to garner a win anywhere in the show. Mm-hmm. I'm going to predict Conclave wins this, because again, I think it is a film that is masterfully written, and I think that while it could win in other places, I think this is the place that they will award it.
Yeah.
So I'm going to predict Conclave. But don't be shocked if Nickel Boys takes this, because Nickel Boys only landed 2 nominations, this and Best Picture. So don't be shocked if the film has enough support to push itself into the conversation. I've not seen it yet. It's one of the ones I've not gotten to.
Yeah.
And at this point, I'm not going to, because I'm seeing it as a part of an Oscars thing done later. So I just don't have the faith in it because I've not seen it. So I'm going to stick with Conclave. But don't be shocked, because it landed a Best Picture nom. It has momentum.
Yeah. I'm going to be trashing this movie a lot. Why is Amelia Perez nominated over Dune 2? Why is it nominated over Dune 2? Here's a quote. And look, guys, this is not safe for work, what I'm going to say. But this is a line, and it really does kind of give you an idea of how the script is written for Amelia Perez. Here we go. Selena Gomez on the phone, and she says, oh, God. She says, my pussy throbs painfully when I think of you. What the heck? That got nominated over Dune 2.
So simply, I think Amelia Perez is nominated because a colossal majority of the Academy are Europeans that don't speak the type of Spanish that this movie is proclaiming to have.
Yeah.
I think I think again, its nomination here is as a like, and again, because let me try and explain this like from a cultural context. Okay. As someone who has a lot of direct family that are Irish or British, they understand less about American and other connected cultures than people in America would assume. Because I think America, I mean, as we've seen with Better Man, America is a very Americentric. They think that if something doesn't exist here or does exist here, that it adapts worldwide.
Yeah.
Emilia Perez, because I've seen some of Jacques Audiard's other work, I have no doubt that on a technical level, Emilia Perez is probably a, if not very well-made film, at the very least, a well-made movie. But this is simply Jacques Audiard working in a field with which he understands nothing. He doesn't naturally speak English. I'm sure he's learned it to some extent, but he doesn't naturally speak English. He definitely doesn't speak Spanish. And if he knows any Spanish, he doesn't know Mexican Spanish. He's never been to Mexico. He's openly admitted that. He has no understanding of how the cartel or trans people work outside of whatever he Googled while doing this script. This is a movie that appeals to people who have no sense of anything that it is trying to do. But as someone who's grown up in a place where I don't necessarily know a lot of Mexicans all that well, but I definitely know a number of South American Hispanic people and like Dominican and Puerto Rican Hispanic people, this is culturally insensitive to Spanish people. And as someone who does know trans people personally, this is insensitive to them as well. But if you are not either of those two things and you have no perception of what the culture is like and you don't speak the language, then technically you have all the pieces to make a film that sounds good on the offset, right? And here's the thing that I'll go to, okay? A few years ago, there was a song that was a worldwide national hit called Despacito by Luis Fonsi. Right? Translate those lyrics to English, and it doesn't sound like anything an English person would say. And it sounds very similar to the line that you just read about a pussy throbbing. It sounds like that type of writing.
But it just
But that's what I mean is like even so to Spanish speakers who know the Mexican dialect of Spanish, it doesn't sound natural. But to people who don't know any Spanish, it sounds about as natural as anything else they've ever translated.
It doesn't sound natural whatsoever because it's like it's throbbing.
Well, that's the
in
point.
pain.
Spanish doesn't sound natural when directly translated to English.
But it's throbbing in pain. Like she's like, "Oh, I miss you." It's like, I'm thinking of you, and it hurts. That doesn't sound good at all. I don't want my ding-a-ling throbbing when I'm thinking of somebody in pain.
Okay.
I don't want that to be the case, so I would assume that's the same for women. But no, like Dune Part 2 should have been nominated over Emilia Perez. 1000%, but it's going to be conclave.
I don't know if I would have put Dune in over it, but I would, even having not seen the film, just the little bits I've seen of it, and I would tend to agree. With that said, we'll go on to director. We have Sean Baker for Anora, Brady Corbett for The Brutalist, James Mangold for A Complete Unknown, Jacques Audiard for Emilia Perez, and Coralie Farja for The Substance. I think this is going to go to Corbett.
Yeah, it's going to Corbett. Denis should have been nominated. I'm very happy Fargeau got nominated. I'm very happy to see her in here. But, I think you could have replaced James Mangold with Denis. But again, it's the release dates. I get that. Maybe if it released in October, November, it would be in.
The other thing is, the other thing that I think plays into Mangold's nom is, unfortunately, this year was a year where there were a lot of people in contention. It's not like there was an obvious clear-cut 5.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that he has made multiple, and we talked about this last week actually, and I called it for this reason, I thought he would get the nomination. Despite the fact that he has made multiple Academy level projects and multiple Best Picture nominees, he himself has never been nominated for director. And so I think similar to the DGA nom, I think this is a career recognition nomination. I don't think it'll translate to a career recognition win. But I think that's why more so he is nominated than anything else, is he made a really good movie and he's never made the cut before. And it's just murky enough this year that we can show him the love and let him make the cut.
Right. But I
agree with you.
Brady Corbett. Yeah. That was Corbett.
All right. So I had to look this up for the show last week. So it's technically, because it's a French name, it's pronounced Corbet, but he says Corbett.
Okay.
So it's kind of like
Timothy.
Like I was gonna say the one that I go to because I'm Irish is I pronounce Barry Keown's name the way that an Irish person would say Barry Keown. If you listen to him say it, he doesn't say it that way, but he's also admitted it's because he knows that like syllabically Gaelic is not something that's really known internationally. So he says it in a way that's a compromise for people to try and get.
Right.
All right, so with that said, we'll move on to supporting. We'll start with supporting actress. We have Monica Barbaro in A Complete Unknown, Ariana Grande in Wicked, Felicity Jones in The Brutalist, Isabella Rossellini in Conclave, and Zoe Saldana in Emilia Perez. First off, I want to say shout out to Felicity Jones. If you guys watched last week's show, I was a huge doubter of her chances. She made it. Congratulations. That said, Zoe Saldana pretty easily. I just don't see her, despite the movie's problems, I don't see her losing the momentum for it.
I said it a few weeks back when we recorded. I don't know if this was the episode that went up or not, but I think we're gonna have a much better idea because I think it's neck and neck with Ariana Grande and Zoe Saldana. But I think middle to late February is when we're gonna start getting an idea of who's gonna win this award because that's usually what we see. Because like not Kieran Culkin, Cillian Murphy last year.
Yeah. Sorry,
he was kind of like that too. But with Giamatti, he was kind of considered the front runner. And then closer to the Oscars, that's when Cillian Murphy started to gain the momentum, and ultimately he ended up winning. I think that's going to be the case here with these two. I'm going to go Ariana Grande for right now. Maybe Zoe Saldana wins so they can give this another bigger award. But I do think Wicked, it might be the same thing too with Wicked look, we want to give this movie a big award. This would be that for this movie. And also that cloud of controversy, negativity could hurt Zoe Saldana. And I think she's easily the best part of that movie. Easily. And I think she's, I'm not upset about her being nominated, but I'll submit a dark horse, Isabella Rossellini. She's not in the movie a whole lot, but it's the career. It's the fact that with her, when she's on screen, she makes such an impact where even though she's not in the movie a whole lot, it's enough that got her nominated. So she's kind of that like, hey, maybe people are struggling between Ariana Grande and Zoe Saldana, so maybe they give their vote to Isabella Rossellini. I don't know. But for right now, I think Ariana Grande wins. Because I do think the negativity is going to affect Zoe Saldana. It could be one of those things where it wins one award. And, it's like, hey, you were nominated for all these. This is the reward. But as far as win, it might hurt in the majority of the categories.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, best supporting actor. Then we have Yura Borisov for Honora, Kieran Culkin for A Real Pain, Edward Norton for A Complete Unknown, Guy Pearce for The Brutalist, and Jeremy Strong for The Apprentice. I think very easily this is going to be Kieran Culkin. If I had to even pick a dark horse, I'm actually going to go with Edward Norton because I think he has the strongest career of the rest of them. And to be fair, I do think his performance in A Complete Unknown is excellent. I remember when I left that film, my first thought was, okay, I've heard Timmy, I've heard Elle Fanning, I've heard Monica Barbaro. Why is no one talking about Edward Norton for awards? And thankfully, the industry agreed. But I could see him being the dark horse, but I do think it's going to be Kieran. I just think he commands way too much of that film. And at the end of the day, no matter how many people want to sit here and argue about category fraud and if he's a lead or if he's supporting, he is nominated in supporting. And I just don't think there's another performance that commands to the level that he does when they're on screen.
Yeah, I'm going Kieran Culkin. I knew back in January last year when I saw the movie that he would at least get nominated, but I felt really strong about him possibly winning because of how good he is in this movie. Um, he's the front runner. He's been winning these awards. I think that continues. My dark horse is actually Yuri Borisov for Nora because he's so good in that movie too.
He's very
He's
good.
great. And he, at times, is the scene stealer, even with Mikey Madison there. He steals a lot of scenes in this movie. He's just like, he's a nice guy. You know, he's a guy you want to hang out with. You want to hang out with Igor. You know, he's just really nice. He understands the situation's not great, so he's trying to be nice to this girl that he helped kidnap. He's trying to be nice, but it's Kieran Culkin, and if he doesn't win, I'll be shocked.
All right, at the 2-hour mark, let's go ahead and wrap this up. We have Best Lead Actor, Adrian Brody for The Brutalist, Timothy Chalamet for Complete Unknown, Coleman Domingo for Sing Sing, Ralph Fiennes for Conclave, and Sebastian Stan for The Apprentice. Very genuinely, I think this is a 4-horse race. I don't think Stan has a chance at winning. Sorry to say, I don't. I think this is a 4-horse race. Adrian Brody has the comeback story. Timothy Chalamet has obviously already been a nominee. He's the young, hot prospect with arguably the best performance of his career. I think Coleman Domingo also delivers the best performance of his career in Sing Sing. I think he's masterful in it. And Ralph Fiennes has the career element of it. But the other thing that people have sort of brought up is Ralph Fiennes doesn't want, like, actively has said he doesn't want to play the campaign game. He doesn't care if he ever wins an Oscar. And I feel like that's going to either endear people to want to give it to him, or it's going to turn him away because people are going to go, especially actors, are going to go, well, if I have to do it to try and win, why doesn't he? As petty as it is, it's the truth. Honestly, simply because I don't really have an edge on who I think is going to win this. I really do think the momentum could shift any one way. Yeah. And I've not seen The Brutalist to secure, like, you know, the one guy who's won the Golden Globe, Adrian Brody, as like the winner. I'm going to go with Coleman just off of my heart. He was my favorite performance of the 4. He's who I would give it to. 90% of these categories, I'm going to vote with logic. With this, I'm just voting with my heart. I'm going to go with Coleman Domingo.
Yeah. So first off, I told you a few weeks back Sebastian Stan was going to get nominated for playing Trump. And
hey, fair enough. Credit where it's due.
I called it. And I think the fact that he is nominated for playing Trump instead of for Different Man, I think he has a chance to win. I don't think he's going to, but I do think his chances are better than what you think. Because also, I mean, this could be because Trump was against this movie. This could almost be like the Academy flipping him off, being like, haha, here you go. The movie you didn't want to come out. Yeah, we're going to give the Oscar to the guy that plays you. But, I mean, he's great. The voice isn't like spot on, obviously, but he's fantastic in the movie. I would have said Adrian Brody, but then that story came out where AI was used on his accent. And maybe that won't play as big of a factor as I think it will, but I do think it's enough to where that actually makes him fall a spot. Timothy Chalamet has been doing a great job when it comes to campaigning. I think the best out of all of them. He's been the best. He went on College Game Day. He went on SNL and sang as Bob Dylan on SNL last night. I think they're going to give it to Ralph Fiennes. I think Ralph Fiennes wins it. It's the first time he's been nominated in what, like 25 years, I believe? Mm-hmm. At least 20 years it's been since he was last nominated. It's been a long time. And who knows, this might be his last time being nominated ever. So I think it's the career thing, you know, and he's fantastic in that movie too. I think Timothy, they tell him, hey, your time will come. Kind of like with Leo. It was like, hey, your time will come. He's kind of turning into that. I think it's Ralph Fiennes. I think he's going to win.
So Ralph Fiennes' last nomination was actually 28 years ago for The English Patient in 1996.
Christ. And he did campaign. on CNN's New Year's Eve. He was on there. He campaigned a little bit.
I don't think he was there to campaign for that. I think he just went on because it's fun.
He was like, hey, watch Conclave. I'm in it.
Well, it's on Peacock, so they need viewers.
It's very easy to view.
We'll go to Best Actress. Cynthia Erivo for Wicked, Carla Sofia Gascon for Emilia Perez, Mikey Madison for Anora, Demi Moore for The Substance, and Fernanda Torres for I'm Still Here. Again, if I were voting with my heart, which I may just do, I think I would give it to Mikey because I do think she is the best of them. I have seen The Substance now. I do think Demi is very, very, very good in the movie. I really just do question. Well, I question, like, just for me, horror in the Academy is kind of like comic book movies in the Academy, and I think I said this last week as well. I need to see it win something before I'll ever predict it winning. So I'm not going to predict Demi Moore. I think I need to see it done before I can believe that it can be done. The other thing that I think inevitably does hurt Demi Moore is while she herself is excellent, half the character is another actress.
Yeah.
And the overall part of it, again, we're nitpicking at this point to like pull things out. I'm gonna vote with my heart again, and again I'll probably be wrong, and that's fine. But I'm gonna vote with my heart, and I'm gonna go with Mikey Madison.
Yeah.
But if I had to put a spoiler in there, I would say Fernanda Torres has a good chance.
Yeah. Right now, Demi Moore has the momentum. It's clearly on her side. And look, it wouldn't be the first time, she won starring in a horror film. Silence of the Lambs. Anthony Hopkins won in Silence of the Lambs. Like, it's rare, but it has happened.
Anthony freaking Hopkins, and that was
didn't that win
over
Best Picture
30 years ago.
Won Best Picture. It's rare, but it has happened. I would have to look because maybe there's somebody else was in something. So I do think she's the front runner. Plus, it's the whole. It's also a career thing too with her. But I'm going to go Fernanda Torres. I think there's a lot of love for I'm Still Here. I think she's going to win. I think that's going to be considered one of the big surprises of the night is her winning. And I don't think it's going to win any major award. This could also be them saying, look, let's give it something. Because clearly the Academy loves that movie and thinks it's one of the best films of the year. Clearly was nominated. I think they're going to give it to Fernanda Torres. And did her mom win the Oscar? Or was she
nominated? I'm not sure if she won.
So I believe she'd be the first. Wouldn't she be the first Brazilian actress to win too?
I believe so. Yes.
Yeah, because I don't think there has been. So she'd be the first, and that'd be something they could do as well. So I think she's going to win. I'm getting that feeling, so I'll go with my gut. But I think Demi Moore wins if it's not her though. I think with Mikey, it's like hey, your time will come.
Okay, so I decided to look up the horror thing just for the sake of reference. This information is coming from Collider.com. Over the course of the Oscar history, there have been 6 horror films nominated for Best Picture. Psycho, which did not win any awards, although it did receive a director nom for Hitchcock and Best Supporting Actress for Janet Leigh. The Exorcist was nominated and had 10 awards. It won 2, but none of them were performance related.
Right.
Jaws was nominated for Best Picture. It won 3 technicals. It had no performance noms. Black Swan was nominated for Best Picture, and Natalie Portman won her award for Black Swan. So that's 1 horror performance.
That's what I was thinking.
Get Out was nominated for Best Picture, and Daniel Kaluuya was nominated for Best Actor, but did not win.
Yeah.
And The Sixth Sense was nominated for Best Picture. It also got Best Supporting Actor for Haley Joel Osment and Best Supporting Actress for a name I cannot remember offhand. But it did not win any awards that year, so they did not win. So if this is correct,
and then Silence of the
then
Lambs.
well, yeah, Silence of the Lambs was the other one that I left out.
Okay. But so it's rare, but it happens. Like it's rare, but it has happened, I should say.
Yeah.
Just like comic book movies. It's rare, but Joaquin Phoenix won for Joker. Heath Ledger won for Dark Knight. So same amount of wins for the acting categories for both genres or both groups.
Okay. Okay, so I have it. So it appears Anthony Hopkins, it appears, is the only male actor to have ever won the award in horror.
Yeah.
And for Best Actress, it has been won 3 times in Oscar history. Jodie Foster also won for Silence of the Lambs. Natalie Portman won for Black Swan, and Kathy Bates won for Misery.
I forgot about her winning for Misery. There you go.
I don't know, man. It just, though, to me, difficult. Those are the outliers. And also, like, for Misery and Silence of the Lambs are not the substance. Black Swan is closer to the substance, but that also had Darren Aronofsky behind it. And he is, like, when he makes a movie worthy, he's awards caliber regularly.
Right. But
I don't know. I'm still on the train of, I think we are still in the outlier stage. I think I have to see it proven.
I don't know. I think the fact that The Substance got nominated for Best Picture, segue, I think that gives Demi Moore an even better shot. And plus, like I said, it could be a career thing too with her, where it's like, hey, you haven't been nominated before. Here's your Oscar.
What did you officially predict?
I predicted Fernando Torres.
Okay, gotcha. All right, so then let's close it out by moving on to picture. We have the 10 nominees. Anora, produced by Alex Coco, Samantha Kwan, and Sean Baker. The Brutalist, nominees to be determined later. A Complete Unknown, produced by Fred Berger, James Mangold, and Alex Heineman. Conclave, produced by Tessa Ross, Juliette Howe, and Michael A. Jackman. Dune Part 2, produced by Mary Parent, Cale Boyder, Tanya Lapointe, and Denis Villeneuve. We have Emilia Perez, nominees to be determined later. I'm Still Here, nominees to be determined later. Nickel Boys, nominees to be determined later. The Substance, nominees to be determined later. And Wicked, produced by Mark Platt. We've never really seen this before with the nominees to be determined later. I'm going to imagine that's as a result of the fires and everything happening in LA. They kind of just said, fuck it, who cares? But for those wondering, they say nominees to be determined later because not every person who produces a film necessarily gets nominated. It is based on participation. A producer also has the right to vacate their Oscar. So, like, for example, one that I read is, and the validity of these could be tested, but this is just information that I know I've read, so I can at least say that I have read this and know it to an extent. Brad Pitt, through his production company Plan B, has been nominated for Best Picture a number of times. However, he forgoes his nomination if he's not directly involved in the movie. If it's just a case of name only, he chooses not to take it. Another famous one is the Russos and their company Agbo for Everything Everywhere All at Once chose to forego their nominations because they were simply involved in just getting money for the movie and making sure it got made. They had no creative involvement in it, so they chose not to take an Oscar for the movie. Another one this year, for example, Timothée Chalamet is a producer on A Complete Unknown, but he's not nominated for producer, as that is more of a name-only type credit. So that's part of the reason why they're saying nominees to be determined. It's up to the films and the studios themselves to submit of the producers who is eligible for said award. That's also why in some of the other picture categories like animated feature or international feature, where or not international, documentary feature where oftentimes it is directors and producers that are submitted for the award. The studios still have to decide based on involvement. Okay, who's actually getting this, right? For example, with animated films, producers, because animated films often have co-directors and producers that are involved to various extents. Famously, for example, when Pixar won the award for Soul, co-director and writer Kemp Powers did not accept the award with Pete Docter. He was not awarded it. Vice versa, when Spider-Verse won, despite the fact that they were producers on the film, Phil Lord and Chris Miller, because of their creative involvement, were a part of the team that won for the movie. So it's very inconsistent. It's a case-by-case basis for these things. Matt, if you had to pick one film and one film only, for the sake of time, let's not go through every single one of these because we've talked about them all more than enough over the course of the night. If you had to pick one film and one film only, who's taking it?
I think it's going to be Anora. I think Anora's going to win it. I will say maybe Dune 2 because there are people in Hollywood that are genuinely confused and pissed that Denis Villeneuve wasn't nominated for Best Director. So maybe they go, you know what? We're going to vote for Best Picture. Maybe that's the case because that's like the big one it could win because it wasn't nominated for Screenplay. I don't think it's going to win. It should win, but I do think it's going to be Anora. I would also not be surprised if it's Emilia Perez.
Okay. So looking at the nominees, my instinct was that this was going to be a year where I think the ranked choice voting decided the win. I just think there are too many films. I think The Brutalist, I think Emilia Perez. Weirdly enough, I think Nickel Boys also kind of falls under this, and I think The Substance as well. Yeah. They have a lot of supporters and a lot of detractors. And so I think they will have a lot of people vote high and a lot of people vote low, but they won't get a lot in the middle. And I think it is going to be that like 3, 4, 5 slot being consistently ranked just in the top 5, I think is going to do a lot for the film that wins Best Picture. My gut, for the longest time, my gut said Conclave. My gut said Conclave, or my gut said Wicked, which, funnily enough, despite the fact that I have doubted Wicked in multiple instances because it has a sequel coming.
Yeah.
Especially given the fact that, you know, like it was a discussed thing in Hollywood that people were going to films that make you feel good, and people were watching in Hollywood. If they hadn't seen a film for the Oscars, or they wanted to rewatch a film for the Oscars, they were going to the films that make you feel good. And at the end of the day, I think that sentiment existing is going to hurt a number of the films involved. I know a lot of people are doubting Conclave because it didn't make director. But I'm actually still going to go with it.
Okay.
Because historically, missing director is not as detrimental as missing screenplay, and Wicked did miss screenplay. And I think that Conclave is going to, which ironically enough, given that it's about the Catholic Church, I think Conclave is going to wind up being the film that has the best feel to it. It is the safest in terms of like one you could go back to and watch. It's smartly written. It's well performed. It's technically very beautiful. I don't know if individually it'll pick up a ton of wins in all these places, but I think Edward Berger has put together a picture that just does everything right to make you feel good by the end of it. And that's what I think is going to help it win. I think Anora is a beautiful picture, and I would be so happy to see it win. But that note that it ends on, I think almost inadvertently, through no fault of its own, could be the thing that sours its chances. Because it doesn't leave you in a good place. And I think that's to the benefit of the movie. But you never know.
Yeah, I could see Conclave too.
Any more thoughts?
Not really, no. I think that pretty much summed it up. I think if anything should have been nominated for Best Picture that wasn't in, probably A Real Pain. I know a lot of people say Sing Sing. I haven't seen that, but I was kind of surprised The Real Pain didn't get in. But I mean, outside of Amelia Perez, I don't have any issues with what was nominated.
Yeah. I don't know. At least for me, Amelia Perez getting 13 nominations, even if I see it and I don't feel that it's worth all that, I'm not going to harp on it because at least I can understand why. Like, I saw the traction the film had. I get why it is where it is. I don't think that'll translate to a series of wins. I'd be very shocked if it translated to a Best Picture win. It's not outside of the realm of possibility, but I'd be very shocked. I do think, though, that I think it's going to be a very interesting year. I think that, especially compared to last year, where it felt like there was such an obvious clean-cut runner in Oppenheimer, and even the categories that weren't dominated by Oppenheimer, I felt like so many of them had, like, clean-cut, obvious favorites that were going to win.
Yeah.
And compared to the year before that, where even if you went into the show wondering if Everything Everywhere All at Once could win, very quickly it became apparent that, oh, this is going to win. Okay. Because it was just dominating. This year feels genuinely like a toss-up. I don't think there's going to be a film that dominates the field anywhere, and I don't think it's going to be easy to predict what wins. And I really do feel like, especially given everything that's happened in LA, it is going to just come down to what are people feeling in the moment. It reminds me a lot of when Coda won, right? I think on a technical level, the Power of the Dog was considered the front runner right up until voting came, and I think people emotionally were just in such a place that they wanted something happy.
Yeah. And I'll say this too real quick before we wrap it up. There has been something with the Oscars where I believe it was the last 3 years. I don't think it was 4, but the last 3 years, my number one movie of the year won Best Picture. Coda, Everything Everywhere All at Once, Oppenheimer. Dune is my favorite. Either my streak continues, and like I said, everybody's frustrations with Denny not getting nominated carries into them voting for Dune, which is why I'm giving it a chance. I don't think it's going to win. But if that happens, then clearly there's the good luck of my favorite movie is going to win Best Picture. Because that's how it's been the last 30 years.
I think your streak dies.
It probably does.
I think your streak dies on Sunday, March 2nd. Guys, tune in and watch the Academy Awards. This is not the last time that we will talk about it leading up to it, as we're going to have more discussions on not just films from last year, but also the Academy Awards itself. Also, for those of you watching at home, for the first time ever this year, the Academy Awards will be available through streaming. It's going to be streaming on Hulu. This was a very recent announcement that they made, so it'll be easier than ever, especially if you don't have cable, to actually watch the award show. I personally love watching it each year. It's something that I've loved since I was a kid, since I got into movies. So tune in, watch the show. I will save these predictions. We'll come back to this in a segment once it is all said and done. But with that said, thank you guys for watching. If you stuck around to the end of this video, or if you skipped to the end of the video, either way. And we will see you guys next week. Thank you.